You sometimes find that whenever you come out on location, you end up walking through the same process. You end up composing your images in the same way. Well, today I want to share an exercise that I use that helps me mix things up a little bit. This morning I've come to Yew Crag overlooking Ullswater, and this is a bit of a bogey location for me. I've come here many times and I've never walked away with a shot that I'm entirely happy with. And I think part of the problem is that I kind of get stuck working in the same way. Typically what I do is I look for something that I can use as foreground interest, I look for something interesting in the background, and then I try and combine the two somehow. And of course that's not the only way to compose a landscape photograph. So what I thought I would do today is try an exercise that I sometimes use that helps me explore some of the different possibilities for a location. I'm going to start this morning by setting up my tripod as I always would, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time just making sure that I'm stood in the right position. The great Ansel Adams said that a good photograph is knowing where to stand, and it's often the most important part of any landscape photograph is getting yourself in the right position. But it's doubly important this morning because once I've set my tripod up, I'm not going to move from that spot. Next up, fairly predictably, I'm going to mount my camera. And on my camera today, I have my 24-70, my standard zoom lens. And you'll notice on the barrel of our lenses, we have a series of focal lengths marked. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a series of shots at set focal lengths. I'm going to start at 24 millimeters. I'm then going to take a shot at 35, 50 and 70. And by doing that, what I'm going to force myself to do is to explore a number of different possibilities for this location. Trying a number of different focal lengths will impact how I frame up my shot and how I compose my photograph. I'm starting at 24mm. And this is the widest for my lens, and this allows me to frame up a composition in a similar way to how I would normally. So it's allowing me to include a lot of foreground. I can include a lot of these grasses here in front of me and the rocks, and then I get the shape of the lake coming in from the left hand side, and then I've got the hills in the distance. So this is a shot that's very similar to the sort of thing that I would normally do. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my lens to 35 millimeters, which is the next focal length that's marked on the barrel. And this is quite interesting because I sometimes fall into the trap, and I'm sure some of you do as well, of thinking that lenses are binary. They only have two settings, their widest and their longest. And obviously this is somewhere in the middle. And I'm going to allow myself to recompose my image, trying to keep things as balanced as possible, but I'm not going to move the tripod. So I'm just going to try and frame up the shot as best I possibly can. And I'm going to refocus as well. I always refocus whenever I change focal lengths. I think it's a good habit to get into, particularly as the bit where I was focused before is no longer in the shot. And then I'm just going to take that shot. Then of course I'm going to continue in that vein. The next focal length marked on the barrel is 50 millimeters. Of course this is a really important focal length for photographers using the 35mm system as I do, because it's as near as makes no difference the same field of view as the human eye. And again, same principle. I'm not going to move the camera. I am just going to reframe the image and refocus. we go. And take the shot. Finally, I'm going to go from 50mm all the way up to 70mm, which is the longest for this lens, and this is going to change the shot considerably. Now, before the composition, I've been trying to include the shoreline on the right hand side, but at 70mm that just isn't possible, and so I'm going to exclude that completely and just frame up a shot with place fell on the left hand side, leading the eye into the distance and towards Sheffield Pike. And this is the whole point of the exercise. The first three shots, I guess, were very similar. We were just zooming in, but now I've completely changed the composition and I'm looking off in a slightly different direction. Now, I'm not sure which of those four shots is my favourite. I will make that decision when I get home and I can see them on the computer. But I'm not finished there. Of course, what I'm going to do now is turn the camera into portrait orientation and go through the process again. So there you go, that's a nice simple exercise that I sometimes use to help me explore the different possibilities for a location and to mix things up a little bit. The next time you're out with a camera, why not try it for yourself?